Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 13th meeting of the Lakewood City Council. I call the regular meeting of our council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Johnson?
Here.
Wickman? Here. Vincent?
Here.
Roybal?
Here.
Harrison?
Here.
Paul? Shakti?
Here.
Abel?
Here.
Coop?
Here.
Franks?
Here.
Bootwine? You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask that all cell phones be silenced for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a few moments of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please read item 4 into the record?
Item 4, presentation, Heritage, Culture, and the Arts Alliance.
Thank you. Will Kaylee Inholson please join me down at the mic? Would you mind introducing yourself? Yeah. And if other folks came with you, would you please introduce them as well?
Of course.
Thank you.
So my name is Kaylee Inholson. I am the new board chair for Heritage Cultural Center Alliance. And I do have another board member with me, Audrey Krebs. And we want to thank you, Councilor Johnson, in lieu of Mayor Paul, City Council, and the community for supporting the rich arts and cultural community we have in Lakewood. We're so fortunate to have an immediate and convenient access to excellent arts and culture amenities where we live, work, and play. The mission of the HCA Alliance is to raise awareness for funds for the city's Heritage, Culture, and Arts program. Each year, about 170,000 people engage with the HCA programs at the Lakewood Cultural Center, the Heritage Center, and the Washington Heights Art Center. Last year, over 15,000 youth and 71 schools benefited from these programs. We have a tremendous core of 240 volunteers who help implement and support the HCA programs year-round. This year, we want to present a check for $8,250 to support the HCA Volunteer Recognition Program, youth scholarships, the Jefferson County Treasure Exhibit, and the Cultural Center, as well as the replica neon sign for the new Estes Motel exhibit that just opened on Saturday at the Heritage Center. With that, we keep thanking you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kaylee, on behalf of Mayor Paul, who couldn't be here tonight, and a very grateful community for all that you do for us, you make our city better for everybody. I want to thank you, not only for what you do, but for such a generous check. And there's a few things that I'd like to just highlight that you've done. You contribute to the public art projects, museum restoration, efforts and programs, the cultural center amenities, and program enhancements at Washington Heights totaling close to $45,000. That's a big deal. Thank you. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 5 into the record? Thank you.
Item 5, Resolution 2016-28, appointing new members and correcting the terms of current members of the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission.
Councilman Harrison, would you like to speak a little bit about this?
I just wanted to congratulate all of the people that are being appointed to the Preservation Committee this evening. We had so many absolutely fantastically qualified people, and with the ordinance that we passed about 2 weeks ago, I'm losing track of time, we added 2 more people to that list, but I'm really excited about what this committee is going to be able to do and all of the qualifications that they have. So thank you, all those volunteers that are on this committee, and I just wanted to say thank you for the time and effort that you're going to put. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Harrison is the chairman of the screening committee that actually went to all the time to make sure that this was done. Is there any public comment regarding this resolution? Okay, if not, may I please have a motion?
I move Resolution 2016-28.
Is there?
I second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. A motion has been made and seconded.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, may I read their names? Because I think it's pretty important that we recognize. And if you're here, would you please stand up? I think I see a couple of people, but I want to make sure that you're here. Nicole Lane, are you here? James Havey. Dave Schaff, I know you're here. Audra Kirk. And Jean Ramsey. Those are the Historic Preservation Committee members that will be serving. So thank you very much.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any more discussion? If not, please cast your vote. Whoops. Nine yeses. This passes. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 6 into the record?
Item 6, Resolution 2016-29, appointing new members to the Lakewood Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community.
Thank you. Councilman Harrison, would you like to speak a little bit to this?
Yes. ACIC is near and dear to my heart. It's what started me down this road of civic involvement, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity for people to get involved in our city. We have 2 wonderful people that have agreed to volunteer. Nicole Melandri, are you here, Nicole? How about Lawrence Lieber? I thought Lawrence was here. Okay. He also goes by Larry, he explained to us. So we're thrilled to have both of you on ACIC. You'll have fun, and you'll really be part of Lakewood. So thank you so very much.
May I please have a motion?
I move for adoption of Resolution 2016-29.
Second it.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any comment, any more public comment, or any comment from the dais? If not, please cast your votes. The motion passes. 8 yeses. Thank you and congratulations. Well, we've reached the time for public comment. This is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to City Council. I ask that all in attendance observe the decorum of the City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker. The indicator lights on the lectern will glow yellow after 2.5 minutes and red when the 3-minute time is up. Let's see, do I have... The first person who has signed up is Jay Chisholm.
City Council, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen.
Move it a little closer to you.
A little closer.
Is it turned on, Jay?
My name is Jay Chisholm. I'm the owner of 1595 Carr Street. I have a degree in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Colorado. The City of Lakewood gave my electrician a permit for my remodel. However, now they refuse to give my general contractor a permit to finish the job. The City of Lakewood uses this flood map to regulate building activities east of the Charles Whitlock Recreation Center. This map was created in 1977. In about 2003, a large stormwater detention pond was installed just to the south of the Whitlock Recreation Center. The detention pond is about 100 by 200 feet and has 2 24-inch inlets and 1 18-inch outlet that empties into the Dover Ditch at Rockley Music. This water then flows to the south. When the detention pond overflows, the flood goes over a spillway that directs the flow into Dover Ditch. In so doing, the City of Lakewood has diverted North Dry Gulch to the south of my property and also greatly reduced its flood flow. This map is therefore no longer valid, yet it is used to regulate me and other property owners building activities east of the recreation center. Why do I have to spend $100,000 to build something that I cannot rent based on this outdated and false flood map? Why? The City of Lakewood gave my electrician a permit for my remodel, and now they refuse to give my general contractor a permit to finish the job. Can my GC get a permit tomorrow? The plans are all approved except for this stormwater issue, which never was an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I believe Ms. Hodson's staff is following up. Okay, thank you. I believe this is the next person to sign up is Randy Look. Is that correct? Okay.
City Council, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. My name is Randy Look. I'm an architect, and my address is 311 Spring Street, Morrison, Colorado. I wanted to point out graphically what Jay was saying, and this is the detention pond at the Whitlock Center, and this is the property, Jay's property, right here at 1595 Carr. And it's right in here that Jay wants to build a 7-foot wall that, according to the reason that he's not being able to get a permit for that wall, is because the water flows from the Whitlock detention pond across this property between Dover and Carr. Well, at the edge of this property in the alley, the city has built a 150-foot long, 4-foot high concrete wall. That would impede the flow of the floodplain to Jay's property. Why would the city reject the idea of a 7.5-foot wall when they have built a 150-foot wall? In doing this 150-foot wall that's 4 feet high, it takes the property out of the floodplain. In so doing so, the city of Lakewood has removed the danger of that 7.5-foot wall from the floodplain. It was this city when the city built this wall, it pushes the flood to the south. So the water goes along this wall to the south, and then it goes down West 15th Place, which takes Jay's property out of the floodplain. This wall has raised the floodplain elevations. By building this wall, they've raised the floodplain elevations in this property. And how can Lakewood build a 150-foot wall across the floodplain, and why can't Jay build the 7.5-foot wall? The city of Lakewood has given Jay an electrical permit for the remodel. Now they refuse to give him, the GC, a permit to finish the job. Can someone please help him? Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. The next person who has signed up is Kaylee Inholson. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
That was the presentation.
Gotcha. Okay. Lynn Judson.
City Council members and Pro Tempo Mayor. I am standing here as a pharmacist. My name is Lynn Judson, and a lot of you know me, I think. And I'm a doctor of pharmacy and also a biochemist who has a degree from Harvard in biochemistry. I am speaking tonight about a sort of a new subject, but I think it's important. I think we should be very conscious of health issues in our public parks in Lakewood, and I assume we have jurisdiction over them here on City Council. I would like us to, in keeping with the new environmental health assessment that we're considering, I would like us to consider whether we can stop using herbicides or weed killers such as Roundup, which we use a lot of in our public parks because of its dangers to children and pets especially, but also to adults. And also the specific compound in it is glyphosate, which is in Roundup, and we use an awful lot of that. And it is, we also want to consider bees, too, and their welfare, and the neonicotinoid herbicides are dangerous for them. And I did notice something. I noticed at one of the public parks there was a butterfly garden, and it said, these are the rules for a butterfly garden. First, refrain from the use of pesticides. And they were being used all over the park. So I would just like us to be more environmentally friendly. And the reason for all this is that glyphosate has been recently declared a probable carcinogen, in quotes, by the World Health Organization. We don't have all the data, but there's been some groundbreaking work at Purdue University by a professor emeritus there, and he has studied the adverse effects on our intestine, which means that the cells have looser junctions and more things are absorbed that shouldn't be absorbed. So basically we have an epidemic of allergies But the worst thing is, recently they've discovered, and I don't know if these are linked, we have to find the research, but they've discovered a connection between a huge increase in colon cancer in young people, people under 50, and that could be related to this because, unfortunately, the FDA is allowing people to spray glyphosate on wheat and also to use genetically modified corn and soy, which about 90% of what we use in this country is. So some of the effects that people believe that glyphosate causes are an increase in cancers, an increase in kidney disease and liver disease, as well as allergies. So I just ask you to consider that and see if we can find a more environmentally friendly approach, because we're trying to be a model city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate your interest in public health. Thank you. Anita Springsteen.
Good evening. My name is Anita Springsteen. As you know, we have always requested that group homes have no more than 8 residents due to the impact on neighbors. The group home on South Newland Street, which serves 12, causes a great deal of traffic, parking issues, congestion, noise. On a light day, at least 50 cars come and go, not counting deliveries, oxygen, transportation, emergency services. In a survey by the CDPHE in 2015, by only August, police had responded 34 times and the fire department 29 times for the year, often waking neighbors. On May 31st, my trash can was crushed by the group home's lawn service. The offenders didn't even bother to move their truck. The week before, the same lawn service had blocked out my entire front parking, started their mowers in front of my door, and trespassed on my lawn. They've also repeatedly blocked out my neighbor's walkway, preventing her, and here's a picture of that, preventing her oxygen delivery last summer. Their excuse is there's nowhere to park in front of the group home. I've told the group home management, and here's just kind of a day of congestion. I've told the group home management that my concern is that the next time it will be one of my children or one of the neighbors' 5 children instead of the trash can who is being crushed by their vendors in all the commotion. My kids were playing with a snake under this trash can earlier that day. I'm terrified for them to be in my front yard. The group home management admits that its vendors are used to parking in the street and there's a lot of traffic, but they have no real solution. My request is for the city to help us deal with this mess that's been created before neighborhood children are hurt. First, please enforce the existing ordinance for home businesses. 17.4.3.1 M7, parking associated with minor home businesses shall be confined to the street frontage of the lot containing the minor home business or the driveway, garage, or carport. And it also says that a minor home business shall not create noise, dust, vibration, etc., other nuisance or hazard that disturbs the peace and quiet of a residential neighborhood. The group home holds itself out as a business to the public. It has paid for a business listing on Google Maps, and if you click on the link, you get business hours. It's the only business listing in the neighborhood. They are a business. There's a process requiring them to pay Lakewood taxes as a business. So I'm begging you, please protect the children and the elderly in Lakewood from these businesses posing as homes. And also, wanted to point out that all applicants for the group homes of 12 continue to be permitted. This must be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. I very much appreciate that you've come and advocated not only for your neighborhood but for others. And I believe that City Council, Ms. Hodson, did you want to speak to further agenda items on group home issues? Oh, okay.
As it relates to Ms. Springsteen's comments, only to express that we absolutely will follow up on those concerns.
Thank you. Is there anyone who did not sign the public comment roster who wishes to address the City Council? Please come up. If so, I just would like to remind you that to please state your name, your address for the record, and remember that there is a 3-minute limit, and you'll see the light there.
Sorry for my attire. My name is Scott Redmond. I live at 2940 South DeFrame Way, which is at Bear Creek and Morrison. My house, along with approximately 12 other neighbors' houses, are back up to Morrison Road. I've been living there for 20 years. We paid extra for the lot to have the view of the park. Over the past 20 years, the traffic has increased tenfold. The noise is unbearable. The exhaust technologies on cars, trucks, and motorcycles are all aftermarket, are illegal. I've been running decibel checks for 2 months, April and May, before even the traffic's even picked up. I start at 5:30 in the morning. I'll hit 97 before 7. And these meters will peak out over 100. That's like a jackhammer. I can't keep my windows open. None of my neighbors can. It's racing. There's a speed limit of 55, and that's optional. I've addressed the police to patrol and set up speed traps or whatever to monitor. Every once in a while, I see a police officer drive down Morrison. I can count on my hand how many times I've even driven by Morrison. I work for CenturyLink, so I drive that road a lot. You never see anybody pulled over. There's been numerous accidents at that intersection. And what I've been working with CDOT, it's a state highway, so it's kind of weird. Lakewood patrols it, it's a state highway. They have been no help. I finally got them because I've sent a few people emails in a chain to ask for what they can do to help. They finally agreed that I can get a dirt berm built, but I have to pay for all of it. It's about 700 feet long, 10 feet high. There's enough green belt to accomplish this. Now, I'm a rookie at this. I'm so far out of my league, and I'm asking for help. We have more than enough dirt that Solterra and these surrounding suburbs have to truck dirt far away and get rid of it. And they can drive right up the street, and I don't have $100 an hour for engineering. I mean, the Prairie Dogs have been engineering for a long time, and they do just fine back there. But I'm asking for some help. And any resources to accomplish this in permits. Like I said, my neighborhood, the HOA doesn't have the funds. It's a green belt, and I'm not getting any help. I've sent numerous letters, emails to the police, to Officer Rickles. It's getting kind of testy, and I don't want it to become that, but it is just unbearable. I've gotten a petition from my neighbors. And right now I don't know where to go with the council and what resources I have to accomplish this. I know it can be done. Other places on Kipling and Bellevue, Wadsworth, they have sound barriers. They have fences. We're wide open. You can't sit on your deck. The quality of life is just gone. Like I said, I paid extra for that lot. And now it's become hard to even sell your house. And now that they're wanting to rezone Alameda, that's another concern. They want to put a Harley dealership. The traffic that's going to be coming down that road is just getting ridiculous. And anybody that's got some answers that can help me, like I said, I finally got CDOT to budge and say, okay, you can do it, but this is, you do it.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming and bringing this to our attention. Ms. Hodson, is there some way that we can follow up with him?
Yes, I'm taking notes, and we will follow up with you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to address City Council at this time? I see no one. Public comment is closed. This takes us on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions and first reading ordinances. Resolutions are items of routine nature. Members of the public will have an opportunity in a moment to comment on any of the proposed resolutions. First reading ordinances appear on the agenda only for the purpose of setting future public hearing dates and ordering the newspaper publication of the proposed ordinance. No public comments will be heard this evening on first reading ordinances. The public will have the opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinances during the scheduled public hearing on the date set tonight by City Council. Any council member may request an item on the consent agenda be removed for separate discussion and action under general business. Will the city clerk please read the items on the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda consists of items 8 through 12 inclusive. Item 8, Resolution 2016-30, endorsing amendment to Lakewood 2016-2017 Head Start grant application for purpose of submitting request to federal government for supplemental funds available to provide cost of living adjustment to staff in Head Start and Early Head Start. Item 9, Resolution 2016-31, endorsing amendment to Lakewood 2016-2017 Head Start grant application for the purpose of submitting a request to the federal government for supplemental funds available to extend duration of services in Lakewood Head Start program. Item 10, Ordinance O 2016-11, authorizing a supplemental appropriation to the 2016 annual budget in the amount of $100,000, authorizing the expenditure of grant funds from the National Endowment for the Arts to the City of Lakewood to implement the 40 West Arts Loop in Northeast Lakewood. Item 11, approving the minutes of the special meeting of City Council on May 2nd, 2016. And item 12, accepting the minutes of the Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Communities Executive Committee meeting of May 4th and their full commission meeting April 20th, both 2016.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public comment period on the proposed resolutions contained in the consent agenda. At the conclusion of the public comment, a vote will be taken on the entire consent agenda, with the exception of any items removed by council for separate vote. If you have already provided your address on the sign-up sheet, you need only announce your name and city of residency when you begin speaking. If you've not provided your address on the sign-up sheet, we ask that you state it now for the record. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker. The indicator lights on the lectern will show yellow after 2.5 minutes and will be red at the end in 3 minutes when your time is up. Would anybody care to speak and address City Council on any of these items? I take that as a no. Okay. If not, public hearing is closed. I am ready for a motion, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, I move for approval of the council minutes for acceptance of the minutes of boards and commissions, order all ordinances introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearings set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
I second that, Mayor.
A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Please cast your votes. Just a second, let me. Okay. The motion passes unanimous, 9 votes yes. Thank you. And also, I apologize. When we did item number 6, I said that we had 8 votes. We actually had 9 positive votes. That is the end of our consent agenda, and there are no second reading ordinances. It's now time for general business, of which I believe we don't have any. Okay. Ms. Hodson, do you have any executive report for us?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Nice job this evening, and I have no report.
Okay. Ms. Greer, do you have any reports for us?
Report. Thank you.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Shakti, Councilwoman Shakti, do you have a report?
Yes. Councilor Roybal and I have our Ward 3 picnic this Saturday. It's a potluck picnic starting at 11 o'clock, and you can fill in any details I've forgotten on that. Alternatively, the same day, there's the Bear Creek Lake Park Trout Fishing Tournament. It's a contest to see which pair catches the most trout. That's 5:30 to 2:30. And then we don't meet next Monday because of a conference many people will be at. So next Wednesday, the 22nd, the Hazel Miller Band will be at Belmar Park. And Saturday, the 25th, is the Rocky Mountain Veterans Festival, which is more live music at Belmar Park. Yeah, lots of good summer activities. And the Rock and Block party just happened, and that was fun, as was the opening of the Estes Motel, which I learned motel is different than hotel because it was for the motor vehicles.
Thank you. Councilman Weichman.
I have often made the comment, I kind of wonder who's running the agenda here. So many times we have long meetings that go for hours and we can't get any good work done. Tonight, we're done after about half an hour. I think there's a disproportionate balance there. Our meetings need to be more even keel, so we've got, an hour or so to really discuss things, but then, not a 2-hour meeting and a half-hour meeting. Can we get some sort of middle of the road? With that in mind, since we have some time today, I would suggest we talk about an issue that we've talked about at some length, and that's the study session coming up here next month on the Tabor proposal. This would be a good opportunity to try a pilot project of involving the community in that study session. So I don't know if we make a motion or a resolution or whatever, or a consensus, that why don't we plan at that meeting to ask for public testimony, or maybe have people sign up in advance or whatever. But let's looking at making that meeting more robust.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess I move that we do that.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to allow public comment when we have our study session, our next study session on Tabor. Am I phrasing this right?
Close enough.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I'm sorry. I should do that. Okay.
Councilwoman Harrison.
I shouldn't interrupt. How are we going to do that? Because usually a study session is good public. We're getting information. But how are we going to work that, Dave? How are you envisioning that to work?
Well, I know there are some experts on the Tabor subject, and I think we could ask that they sign up in advance, so we can find out, who they are, and ask how many minutes that they need, and using that as a starting point. And then I suppose at some point, as Ramey was saying, we could do a public comment as well, maybe 3 minutes. But I'm really more interested in hearing from the experts, really giving us some of the debate, like we do with our staff. I want to expand it beyond staff to include other experts as well.
My only concern with that would be I don't mind getting the information. I think that that's good information to get. The only thing that bothers me is that when we get ready to take a vote, are we remembering things in the same way? In other words, normally when we have a meeting, we have the speaker come make a presentation that night, and we've got the chance to sit and ask the questions of the speaker at that particular point in time. Would you also propose these same people who testify also be at the next meeting, at the regular meeting, so that if there were any secondary questions that might come up, how would that be public record? That's my concern.
Sure, yeah, that would be fine. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. Like I said, I'm visualizing it the same thing as we do with our staff, that it's back and forth. They're all here, and I don't think they're going to have any problem with coming back on a second meeting. They probably will be anyway. And it would be a very good opportunity to hear what they say, debate it, ask some questions, and then when it comes to the formal vote, they can come back and elaborate on their point. That little give and take in a debate, you're building upon your points. So you're not forcing people to come up with some sort of 3-minute magic speech. This way we have some dialogue back and forth. And an ongoing dialogue, I think, is going to be very positive.
Councilwoman Shakti and then Councilman Abel.
Thank you. So I am uncomfortable having this conversation because we have a procedure where we know what's on the agenda so that councilors can be prepared for what we're going to be talking about, and so the public has notification so that they can give input. And this is something you brought up, Councilor Wickman, as something we should talk about putting on the agenda, which we've just come up with a whole procedure of how we do that. And it is one of the things in that queue that we will be talking about. And I think it's an interesting idea at different levels. But I don't think that we can start the policy of just bringing up new subjects that aren't on the agenda at council meetings.
Well, see, that's where I disagree. As my point is, who puts this stuff on the agenda? I mean, this should have been on the agenda a long time ago. I mean, at a bare minimum, we discussed it in February. And ever since then, I've been pushing this issue. We need to discuss it. And we keep pushing it off. It's like, oh, now we'll talk about whether we want to talk about it in July, months later. And in the meantime, we're wasting this evening. This agenda is just kind of out of control. We need to have some sort of input on the agenda. And I'm saying, I know I have no input. I was like, who makes this agenda? I keep asking.
So since Councilor Wickman just responded, can I respond to Councilor Wickman?
Certainly.
So one of the things we got in the council discussions about what is the appropriate procedure for figuring out what to put on the agenda was that people want enough time to digest the information about a topic that's going to come forward. And so that has been one of the things we've thought about in setting dates, because a number of people work on this council. We want to get the information so that we're making educated choices and having educated conversations, and we have time to digest it. And if we just bring up a topic at a meeting and then talk about it then, that's not how you make intelligent decisions.
Okay, well, how do I get something on the agenda? This bit about fill out a form and we'll discuss it months later. I mean, I only have a year and a half left. I mean, we can run the clock all we want, but at some point, we have no influence on this agenda.
Councilman Abel?
Councilwoman Shakti brings up an interesting point, but I do think this idea is worthy of discussion, whether we vote on it or not. May I ask, who decides expertise? Is this volunteer expertise from the community? Is it solicited expertise from... there's a small pool of true experts on Tabor. So do we look them up? And I'm not opposed to any of that. What would be your means of bringing expertise on Tabor to the table that night?
Well, the analogy that I use is what we use at the legislature, either federal or state. They have hearings, and in those hearings, members from the public can come and testify. And so we should have an opportunity for the public to testify.
May I?
Councilman.
I agree with that. I encourage public comment at any time, any place. You referred to expertise on the other side. I'm not sure what other side you're talking about, although I get the idea that there was some ideas presented last week about taking the Tabor to a vote for exemption or refunding. And certainly, again, public comments more than welcome, but you said expertise on the other side. So I know a number of my neighbors that could come and talk on Tabor, and none of them would claim to be an expert. So would you define expertise on Tabor and how we solicit such expertise along with public comment, which I'm totally in favor of?
Well, why don't we take out the expertise and just ask for testimony? And that way we don't have to judge whether somebody's an expert or not. You know, if they want to testify, then let them sign up to do so.
And if I may, I believe then the public comment element was brought up last week at study session, that we wanted to work that into this equation. I would like also to, if there are any Tabor experts out there, Penn Fiffner, are you listening, that they come in to the study session and bring us their expertise and their opinions. Voting tonight on a motion that the public wasn't aware we were going to address, I can understand Councilwoman Shakti's position on that. I'm not. How about if we give direction, perhaps, or some suggestion of how we tackle this in a more solid form in a forum where we can announce it? We have 2 more meetings before that. Is that correct, Ms. Hodgson?
Yes, we have July 11th, and then the meeting we were to talk about Tabor at the study session was July 18th.
Would it be proper for us to give some consensus of direction that we bring up Councilman Wickman's idea formally at one of those meetings?
As a matter of fact, on July 11th, you, under general business, you are going to talk about all of the agenda items, the requests. You were going to have that discussion on the 11th anyway. And I believe Councilor Wickman has already proposed and submitted this particular idea. So you will be addressing this, among others, for placement on the agenda on July 11th.
We can move tremendously slowly on some things, and my concern is that we might address this next week but not have anything in place in time to make it formal for public comment at the study session in question.
Councilwoman Shakti.
So it's my understanding that the study session in question was already set up as an unusual study session designed to take public comment. Does that sound right?
That's what I referred to earlier.
Yeah, you reminded me. Thank you.
But I thought we were going to... Somehow that process never got a formal nod.
I've been announcing
locked
it.
into it? Does everyone...
Did you get your...
I hate to throw this at you, Mayor Pro Tem.
My understanding is we were talking with our people between now and the 18th, and so we would have some input. And we're having another meeting on the 18th, but I don't see that we had any formal mechanism for people to be testifying or commenting on the 18th.
Can I follow up?
Councilwoman Shakti.
If so, perhaps it's not totally clear. If we come up with a clearer decision on the 11th, would there be time that we could then implement it on the 18th?
implement an opportunity for
public comment
on
at the
18th.
study session. Yep.
Of course.
Okay. Councilwoman Harrison.
I was just going to suggest perhaps we could, we've used several, like on the smoking ordinance and other things, we've asked for comments regarding those on our website. Perhaps we could ask for comments there as well. That would give a lot of people some possibilities, as well as maybe announcing the meetings dates. Then that way we could get more comment.
I second that.
Of course, we're happy to do that.
Now, let me clarify, that's not in lieu of public comment at the study session.
Are you recognized?
Councilman Wickman, go ahead.
Well, I like the idea of having comment on the website. That's good, but I don't want it to end there. I mean, when you do public comment or you do comment on the website, nobody sees it. If you're at a study session and you're testifying on the behalf of your issue, then it's heard by everybody, not only just the council. And so again, it's part of that dialogue that's public. So I just want to clarify: are we still making sure that we have public involvement on the July 18th meeting?
Ms. Hodson, I'm just wondering, I think that Councilman Wickman's idea has been out there for a while. He's been floating this, that we have a balance when we have presentations. And I think that's an idea actually that has merit. The Tabor issue is an important issue. I wonder if it's possible to have a pilot for the Tabor, that for that particular one we can jumpstart the agenda, so to speak, where we would have an even presentation prior to the day that we are addressing the agenda on how to present this. Am I saying, am I speaking clearly?
What about the presentation? Can you restate that? Having an even presentation?
Right.
I want to make sure
I believe that Councilman Wickman's idea has merit, that we have an even presentation. And I'm not sure if expertise, whoever comes, can at least testify. That does have merit. The issue, if I am understanding right, is that we do have one day where we are going to have agenda items that everybody on council has been brought forward. And this is one of those items that is on that agenda. If there's some way that we could do this as a pilot and jumpstart it so that we can go ahead of that and have that kind of even balanced testimony before we actually talk about all those agenda items as a council. Did I make myself?
I think I understand. Let me restate that and see if that's helpful. So we would still have the conversation on July 11th as it relates to agenda setting and the topics that you all have submitted. So we would still have that conversation on the 11th of July, and that would include the one that Councilor Wickman has just reminded us of. In addition, then, you're saying or suggesting that on July 18th, we have we pilot that in advance of the conversation on the 11th, so we can do some notification. And this would be considered a pilot study session where we have you have your comments, but we'd also have citizen testimony, so public comment during that time. So even though we're still going to talk about it on the 11th, we're going to pilot it on the 18th, and you would all need to agree to that, I think, tonight, so that staff can move forward and have that posted.
So you're correct. Councilman Wickman, would that be agreeable with you?
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure I've got these in the right order. I've got Councilman Abel, then Councilman Harrison, then Councilman Shakti, and then Councilwoman Vincent. Councilman Abel.
A couple of things to answer Dave's question about whether Councilwoman Harrison was putting up an instead of. She clearly said in addition to the public comment at study session that she would like to have it on the webpage. It's additional, not instead of. Secondly, you referred to you said there will be one day for agenda setting. There is, I believe, one day already scheduled, but this agenda setting process will continue throughout the course of years, we hope.
That's accurate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Councilwoman Harrison.
Yes, the only thing that I wanted to talk about is that I feel like this whole discussion, we need to make sure we've got some rules of engagement, so to speak. If we're going to do a pilot program, we need to have an idea of how are we going to take public comment? How do we ask questions of the speaker? Can the speaker ask questions of us? We need to kind of have some rules of engagement so that we know kind of what to expect and how to act, I guess is the best way to describe it, how that communication is going to take place. That would be important for me to have a better idea of how to do it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Shakti.
I echo that. That the idea is that we have a time set up to have where we will have reviewed the proposal, and then we have a discussion of the proposal, and then we decide whether to move forward with it. And the reason is because, like, if we just move forward right now, my feeling is pilot what? So who gets to speak for how long? Is it a discussion format or just a one-way format like this? Is there some sort of expertise? Does it have something to do with what the presentation is? Because that's sort of how it's being talked about. Or is it just the public testimony? Like, there's a lot of outstanding questions. So although I think we can make it on the 11th, we can design it so on the 18th we're taking public input. I think we're rushing it if we plan to do it tonight.
Councilwoman Vincent.
I guess I do agree with that, and I want public comment. But when you have a lot of people with a lot of passions in this community, and if we say it's okay for Tabor, then we better be prepared as a council then to go forward, and everyone who comes up who has a passion about an apartment building that's going to be built, or a store that's going in, or a stop sign. We have to be prepared to then respect everybody else's opinion with that same thing, too. We can't put a parameter as a council saying this is important and nobody else is unless we start ground rules. And that's where we have to go with this.
Councilwoman Franks.
Thank you. I just wanted to weigh in. I do think process is important, so I do think that we need to come up with a process for engagement. But since I've joined council, I am desperate to hear the other side of an argument. So that's a big thing for me. It's like where I feel like I'm sometimes being half prepared, and so there's a lot of extra study. And there's people out in our community who can contribute and add richness to the debate. So I'm definitely for the debate, but I do think that it has to be in a very structured environment. Otherwise, we will end up with a free-for-all for every particular topic. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Councilman Abel.
We're not talking about every stop sign, every vehicle purchase. We're talking about study sessions. In every study session, I believe the citizens should have a right to speak their mind. I have sat through a number of study sessions and wonder, wow, why aren't they asking this? So I think our citizens can really give us great input and a different perspective. And I have no problem with every study session, just like every public hearing we have, being open to the community's comments.
Would that be prior to having public comment prior to the presentation?
No. What are they going to comment on? My thought is that we listen to the presentation and we ask our questions, and then afterward we set a time for public comment so that they can, after being informed and forming questions from that basis of knowledge, then they can ask those questions of us or the presenters. But again, this is something that we had planned to discuss along the line between now and that Tabor study session. So hopefully we can iron out all of those wrinkles before then.
Okay, Council, we've actually got a motion and a second on the. Help me out again with what our motion is, Councilman Wickman.
Well, we're going to do a trial on July 18th to try out the process of public testimony, and then as a trial basis, that'll be an opportunity for us to fine tune a permanent process for study sessions.
Councilwoman Shakti.
I'm interested in a little bit of legal background on what can we vote on that we don't have on the agenda, that we haven't given notice about.
Well, not to sound flippant, but this isn't the kind of thing that the public would provide input for anyway. So you may be familiar with the Town of Marble cases, the two, one Court of Appeals and one Supreme Court, which basically discussed what you can discuss that's not on an agenda. This is the kind of decision-making that the Supreme Court, Colorado Supreme Court, would have considered out of bounds under the second Town of Marble case. Under the Court of Appeals case that was overturned, it probably would be. But in this particular instance, moving forward, how you're going to potentially conduct study sessions is not something that you would be prohibited from making a decision on tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Councilman Coop, Abel, and Harrison.
Is there another opportunity before the 18th for us to make a decision on this? Because as has been pointed out many times from these seats up here, it seems like something gets thrown at us and people are reluctant to vote on things when they don't have enough time. And now this was just brought to us tonight. So I would like to hear, actually from my constituents, I'd like to talk to people a little bit about this. What are the good things? What are the bad things? Because there's always unintended consequences for most of the things that we do up here. So I would prefer to hold this off until if there is another chance, another meeting to have this vote.
Ms. Hodson, do we have a different date?
Again, we have July 11th, which is intended to have the conversation around agenda setting and the requests that have come in. So that's July 11th. We have scheduled July 18th as a study session, additional study session for the Tabor conversation.
Let's see. I believe it was, didn't I say Abel and then Harrison? Is that right? Okay.
I like that order at least. I believe the attorney, when he referred to the Town of Marble decision, I believe that says that if you're discussing something and the conversation moves to a related topic, that's okay. But if the presiding officer knows 48 hours before the meeting what will be discussed or voted on, then that has to be on the agenda. Is that the basis for your advice?
In part, Councilmember Abel, I would actually suggest that if any council member knew ahead of time that an issue was going to be raised, there's not a specific time frame, 48 hours, it could be 24 hours. It just, it's fair and complete notice to the public. And you're correct about if you have a topic that's being discussed and it moves into another topic, that in some instances action could be taken on that topic. In that particular case, however, the topic that ended up in action being taken was actually on the agenda. Basically, the Colorado Supreme Court has said, to the extent that you can provide notice, you must provide notice. But there are instances where you're not going to know ahead of time that a topic will be ripe for action. In this particular instance, it's a little different because not only was this item not on the agenda, but you're not taking the kind of action that, sort of legislative action, a decision to enter into or exit a contract, those kinds of decisions. You're making a process decision.
Sure. I'll bet you a cup of coffee it says 48 hours in that decision. However, what we're doing here is wondering if the public wants to comment on public comment. I'll bet you I know that if anybody walks up here and wants to comment on that subject, they're in favor of it. So maybe we're just dancing on the head of a pin tonight. We need to get this taken care of.
Okay, Councilwoman Harrison, then Vincent, then Coop.
Dave, what you say a lot of times is very sound advice, and I think there's what you're saying tonight. You don't like it when anybody else presents an item that you're not comfortable with, that you haven't had time. I have Ward 5 meeting this weekend. I would like to have the opportunity to be able to bring this to my constituents and see what they say. I've encouraged people to come and testify on behalf of Tabor. I talked to a lot of people and asked them to come tonight, and there are people very interested, and I could count probably 6 or 7 people in the room right now that could come and testify on behalf of Tabor, one way or the other, and yet tonight's meeting, they didn't come prepared to do that. So I think that we need a little bit of time because we all need to know how to testify, what the rules are going to be, how we need to do that. So I would really ask, Dave, if you would consider withdrawing your motion, allowing us to let the process work, and on July 11th we'll figure out how to make this happen. I agree that we should have public comment. I'm not opposed to having them at the study session, but I want to know how we're going to do it before I vote for it. Is that possible?
One of the comments I wanted to make is I'm caught up in a catch-22. I can't get anything on the agenda, and then we can't discuss stuff because it's not on the agenda. So it's a catch-22. Having said that, I would be happy to put this off for till the next meeting. But we can't keep kicking the ball down the can down the road. Like I say, I only have a year left, or a year and a half. So yes, I will agree for I will withdraw it at this point with the understanding that it's not dying again. We keep putting these things off on the hopes that I'll go away or we'll just quit. I will bring it back again. And so next time, I don't want to hear the argument that we're caught by surprise and all that sort of stuff. But I will withdraw the motion tonight.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Vincent.
Yes, I didn't want anybody to think that I was not for public opinion at all or information. But I think what I'm reacting to is I don't know what I'm reacting to. Is it possible to get some information how you see this process working, maybe with Ms. Hodgins to come up with some sort of parameters or some sort of information so that I can vote or react to something then on the 11th? I would be, if you would.
Again, I keep using the analogy of in Congress and at the legislature, they have hearings. And in those hearings, they invite certain people to testify. And then in addition, other people can sign up to testify. And in that process of testifying, the lobbyists from the different sides all come forth and give their perspectives. And in the process of going through that hearing, you hopefully have heard from both sides, hopefully equally. Right now, we're only hearing one side. So any sort of process that would allow people outside of staff to testify is what I'm pushing towards.
Council, can I please just remind you that we're having a lot of back and forth, and let's try and get down the road here, and we're running out of time, too. It's getting late. Councilman Coop, and then Councilwoman Shakti.
I'm not against this idea. I'll just put it out there. But I'll reiterate what some of the other councilors have said, is that I just want to know what I'm voting on. So if public testimony, then that's great. I think we all want to hear it up here, what our constituents want. At our ward meeting already, we had a wonderful conversation with constituents, and we told them there would be other meetings that they could come for public comment. None of them showed up. I'm sorry, one did, but didn't speak on the topic. So that's their prerogative. So I would just like to know what we're voting on at the time. And another question that I've got is that, what is the opposite side, because we're talking about putting something on the ballot for the citizens to vote on. Is the opposite side going to be not to let the citizens have their say? So it's kind of confusing for me to be talking about an opposite side when we want to give the citizens the vote anyway.
Councilwoman Shakti.
I just wanted to clarify that the plan is on the 11th or any date when we're discussing agenda items that may be brought forward, that all of the council members and the public will see the form that the council member fills out as their proposal for an agenda item. So that will be the substance that we can look at and think about before we come to the meeting.
Okay, we've had a motion. Oh, Councilman Roybal.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We've had the withdrawal of the motion, so now I am moving forward and talking about our Ward 3 picnic. So we're going to see if we can move on. Okay? Thank you. Lasley Park, 11 a.m. We're having a community picnic. Please come. Thank you.
Councilwoman Vincent.
No report.
Councilwoman Harrison.
I just wanted to invite everybody to come down to Ward 5 this Saturday, 9 a.m. We will have a walking meeting. Try to figure that one out. We're going to be looking at the new Carmody Park, the plans, I should say, of what the new Carmody Park will look like, and we're going to have a walking tour. Meet us at 9 a.m. at the Carmody Park shelter, come rain or shine. We can walk around the park even if we have umbrellas. So be there or be square, and see you on Saturday. Thank you.
Councilwoman Franks, you have a report?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the National Night Out, which is an annual community building campaign that promotes police and community partnerships, is going to be on August 2nd. And the police department is looking for a few additional sponsors for those. So if you're in a neighborhood and you want to host a National Night Out, just send an email to one of your counselors and we'll be sure to connect you with the right folks. The other thing I wanted to follow up on is this past Saturday we had our Ward 4 meeting, and the major topic was the development C470 in Alameda. And so we had the developer give a presentation, and then there was a few minutes for some questions from the audience. And then we had a group who's in opposition to the rezoning, and they spoke. And so what we're trying to do is there wasn't enough time to get all of the questions answered. And so if you want to send those questions to either Councilor Wickman or myself, we're going to put those all together, get those in front of our speakers, and then also try to schedule a follow-up meeting. So, and then our next meeting it's always a second Saturday of each month, 9:30 to 11 at Green Mountain Presbyterian Church. The next meeting will be about traffic. It's going to be everything from code enforcement for traffic, traffic engineering. So if you've got any questions on those topics, feel free to give those to us so we can get our speakers well prepared. Thank you.
Councilman Coop.
Just want to congratulate Mayor Pro Tem Johnson on chairing her first council meeting, and nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Abel.
Thank you. Our Ward 1 meeting will be Saturday morning at Holy Shepherd Lutheran Church at 920 Kipling, 9 a.m. until 11. We'll be discussing the Tabor issue and other pending issues coming before City Council, and any other grist for the mill that Ward 1 folks or anyone else from the city that wants to attend would like to raise. Secondly, last Thursday evening, I attended the Lakewood Police Youth Police Academy continuation. 11 young folks, high school students, went through a grueling week. I understand it was a grueling week from their accounts of it, of police training, but they also had a good time and built a bond between the 11 folks that will probably last for a lifetime. These kids were great, but even greater was the amount of time that our police officers contributed to this academy, and their guidance and influence will pay dividends for years to come.
Councilwoman Shakti, do you have a report?
I already gave my report. Thank you.
Well, Council, I'd like to thank you for the robust discussion we've had. And on July 11th, let's come with some thought on how we can take Councilman Wickman's idea forward. It has merit, and let's see what we can do to make that a reality. Well, in closing tonight, sadly, once again, we are experiencing firsthand the face of terrorism. You all are aware of what happened in Orlando yesterday. It's an act of hatred, and the fear it creates will not define America, and it will definitely not define Lakewood. I want to thank the men and women in our police department for putting themselves on the line daily for our personal security and our community safety. However, our police department cannot keep us safe alone. Community safety is all of our responsibility. They need our eyes and our ears. I encourage you to become familiar with an organization called the CELL, C-E-L-L, that stands for Counterterrorism Education Learning Lab, and to learn the 8 signs of terrorism and when is the right time to call the police. The biggest opponent of terrorism is education and vigilance. Whatever your faith, let each of us lift the victims' families in prayer that God may embrace them in the healing love of their family and friends and a nation that stands with them in sadness. God bless America and God bless Lakewood. Our meeting is adjourned at 8:17. Thank you.